Good afternoon to all the participants present here. I welcome you all to the last day of this lecture series, a webinar on biotechnology concepts to practice. Today we have a speaker, Dr. Ravi Kumar, who will be elaborating on digital droplet PCR, a novel technique which is the need of the hour. So with this, I request the organizing secretary, Dr. Tyagarajan sir, to introduce the speaker to us. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. So good afternoon, everyone. I welcome Dr. S. Ravi Kumar as a resource person for the 6 days webinar series. So today, sir is going to present a topic on digital droplet PCR and its application. So sir is from Arubadaividu Medical College and Hospital, Puducherry, principal scientist and head of Center for Biomedical Research. Sir completed his PhD from Pondicherry University with the specialization biochemistry and molecular biology. Thereafter, he pursued his postdoctoral fellow in Busan National University, Korea, with the specialization molecular biology. Thereafter, he joined the University of Ulsan, Korea, as research associate, as a senior research fellow and research professor. Then he worked as assistant professor in Catholic University of Daegu, Korea. Then now at present, he is working as a principal scientist and head of Center for Biomedical Research in Arubadaividu Medical College and Hospital, Puducherry. And sir has 47 research papers, which was published in reputed journals, and he has written a book on kinetics and thermodynamics of xylose isomerase. And sir works a patent and biosensor, which was detecting a glutamate and preparation method for that. And he has organized 25 international conferences. Sir, once again, I welcome you, sir, for this talk. Over to you, sir. Sir.
Good afternoon to one and all. Thanks for the nice words, Dr. Tyagarajan. The foremost, I would like to thank the management of Satyabama University for having me here as a speaker for today's session. And a special thanks to Dr. Ramesh, the head of the biotechnology department, and Dr. Tyagarajan, a good friend of mine, and the other organizing committee for providing me this opportunity. So myself is Dr. Ravi Kumar Sambandam, working as principal scientist in Arubadaividu Medical College in the lab Center for Biomedical Research. Today, I'm just going to share my views on digital PCR and its application in mainly on healthcare. So during this pandemic, during this pandemic situation, the two peoples are very popular right now. One is Mr. COVID-19. Everyone knows him. The another person is called as a real-time PCR. I think in 2020, nearly 90 to 95% of the people come to know about real-time PCR in the globe, because earlier, nearly very few people might knows about the PCR itself. But the RT-PCR is a word knows to everybody in every discipline of people. They know what is real-time PCR. So the application or the importance of PCR is mind-boggling one. So today's session, I'm just going to give an outline about the principles of thermal cycler and real-time PCR, and the basic steps involved in digital PCR and how it is going to differentiate between a thermal cycler and real-time PCR, and the components used in the real-time digital PCR, and how we are going to analyze the amplified product in digital PCR. Finally, the applications of digital PCR in mainly on healthcare. This is a man who discovered or invented the PCR technique called, his name is Karis Muller. He's a biochemist. This invention is called as a game changer in the field of forensic diagnosing of any disease and monitoring any kind of diseases. In 1983, he got an idea. This idea became an award-winning idea, and he proposed these ideas. And after completing his project, he submitted to Nature and Science, and both of these well-renowned journals rejected his manuscript. But in 1988, with Perkin-Elmer, the automated thermal cycler came into the existence. So this is the first of its kind, the thermal cycler, which is invented by Karis Muller.
Sir, sorry to interrupt, sir. You can share your PPT, sir. Actually, when I started my sharing, yours got stopped. So you have to again share the screen. Sorry for the trouble, sir.
One sir.
Again, you have to click on share the screen.
Yes,
and then yes, sir, it's visible now. It is in the denaturation. Yeah, okay, sir. Fine, sir.
So this is the first PCR which is invented by Karis Muller. So this is not an automatic system. You can see that you will have 3 bath. It's a kind of water bath. One is running around 95 degrees Celsius. Another one is 50 to 60 degree, and the last one is around 72 degrees Celsius. So this is operated manually. It is not an automatic device. But in 1988, the Perkin-Elmer introduced this system with an automated, and it is named as a thermal cycler after that. So the polymerase chain reaction, I hope everyone knows what is the principle. It is just an incubator which allows amplification of a specific DNA section from a template. There are only major types, is 3 types of PCR. One is thermal cycler, real-time PCR, and digital PCR. So the mostly what as a medical scientist, we just focus only on the diagnostic application. So where we are find application in genetic variation and mutation, and cancer biomarker, and to detect the infectious disease like COVID-19 and HIV. So the principles of PCR is a technology used for quick and easy amplification of DNA sequences. And it involves 3 basic steps in PCR. One is denaturation at 95 degrees Celsius. Another one is annealing 50 to 60 degrees Celsius. The final is extension around 72 degrees Celsius. So these steps are performed at different temperature, and repeated cycles forms a chain reaction. So for all this process, you need a enzymatic replication. So here we use a Taq polymerase, so which is an isolated from Hotspring thermophilic enzyme, and it is called as from Thermus Aquatics. It is isolated. So the first one is denaturation. So everyone knows that at 95 degrees Celsius, the double-stranded DNA will be unwinded. So at higher temperature, it's separated into 2 single strands. To do this steps, you need 15 to 30 seconds for denaturation. And the annealing is from 50 degree to 60 degree, where the primers will go and bind to the particular regions of a template strand. So for this, the steps needed is around 15 to 60 seconds for annealing. If annealing temperature is too low, then it leads to a non-specific hybridization. If annealing temperature is too high, it prevents the stable hybridization. So in the annealing process, only the primer will bind to the specific regions of the DNA. So the next one is the extension at 72 degrees Celsius, where the Taq polymerase enzyme will come and bind to the primer and start amplification. So for this, it needs 60 seconds for polymerase and extends 1000 base per minute actually. So this is the basic principles involved in thermal cycler, real-time PCR, and digital PCR. And the essential component for all those things is DNA template. You need a DNA template for amplification, then thermostable DNA polymerase you need, and then a primer, the short DNA fragment from 18 to 22 base pair to initiate the PCR reaction. So the next you need the nucleotides. So you need a mixture of deoxy, adenosine, guanine, cytosine, thymine, and it is used for an extension process. So finally, you need a cofactor, that is a magnesium 2 plus for DNA polymerase enzyme with a stable pH. So this is a component also present in all three types of PCR. So next, coming from the real-time PCR, so the major disadvantage of thermal cycler is that you need to run a PCR product on the gel to find out the presence or absence. So it is a qualitative determination. So, but in real-time PCR, they come with a camera or a detector, and it can able to monitor the whole reactions real time. So that is called as the real-time PCR. And today, the real-time PCR is one of the popular among all of us. And the number of gene copies increases during this reaction. The fluorescence also increases. That can be captured by the real-time PCR. So coming to the principles of the real-time PCR, the output of the real-time PCR will be a sigmoidal curve. So where the initial will have a baseline, the next one is the exponential phase, then the linear phase, and the plateau phase. The early exponential phase is nothing but an amount of DNA where the doublings occurs. So that is an initial doubling occurs in the early exponential phase. And in the plateau phase, the reaction stops. So with this information, the system can able to capture the two important things. One is the threshold, another one is the CT. The threshold is nothing but at a point at which the amplification start. So this is a point where the amplification start. Okay, and the threshold cycle is nothing but comparing the point, you will be getting the at which cycle the amplification started. That is called as a CT value. So the CT value is inversely correlates the amount of template in the sample. That's how the real-time PCR works. So in real-time PCR, there are two chemistry followed. One is a fluorescent dye, another one is a fluorescent probes. The dye is nothing but a cyber green dye, which can intercalate with the only double standard DNA molecules. Okay, so this dyes bounds to the double standard DNA, and therefore, whenever the amplification occurs at the end of the cycle, you will be getting two more the daughter DNA, so that the fluorescence start increasing during the reaction. So whereas in case of fluorescent probes, you need to design a probe at a point which can able to binds to the target DNA, and the probe contains two elements. One is called as a fluorescent, another one is a reporter molecule, another one is called as a quencher molecule. So the quencher will inhibit the reporter to not to fluorescence. So when the amplification process started, what happens? This the quencher will come out from the reporter molecule, and this starts fluorescence. So That's how the fluorescent probes chemistry works. When compared to the dyes and the probes, the probe will be a specific one, whereas the fluorescent dye, you will be expecting the non-specific binding also. So there may be a chance for getting a primer dimer during the amplification process. That time also what happens, this fluorescent dye will go and bind to the molecule, and you will be getting a negative signal, so that you can't able to capture it properly. So using a fluorescent probe in real-time PCR is advisable. So the output of the real-time PCR will be exactly like this. So the amplification process completed in each cycle will be plotted. The points will be plotted. So here you will be seeing two sigmoidal structure. One is a blue sample, another one is a green sample. So the blue sample, which has a the CT value of around 23, and the green sample, which has a value of around 28. So if you apply those to this 2 to the power of 5, this difference is 5. So when you are applying to this, what happens? The blue sample contain 32 times of more gene of interest than the green sample. So you can see the difference is very little, but the actual product of the DNA which is presenting in the sample is 32 times greater. That's how we can able to detect the quantity of the DNA target which is present in the sample. So why we need the digital PCR then? So this PCR is nothing but an qualitative PCR, and this one is quantitative. So the quantitative, the second generation quantitative PCR is a relative PCR. So what is meant by relative quantitative PCR? The relative quantitative PCR is nothing but you need some kind of control to your complete study. So each time, whenever you run the real-time PCR, you need a control. You need either a positive control or negative control or internal controls in order to get your perfect data. So when you want to reproduce the same data in some other lab, you might have a same difficulties. For example, so in this COVID-19 pandemic situation, I don't want to name the hospital. There are two hospitals. One hospital, nearly 20 to 30 cases, they said, reported that the patient is positive. But in another hospital, the same sample were sent to that, and then it is also one of the renowned hospital, and then they gave the report as a negative. Because handling the real-time PCR is not very easy. You need a well-trained technician to handle it. Not technician, I think we need a well-trained professionalist to handle it. The real-time PCR, it is not easy to handle, okay? But coming to the digital PCR, that is an absolute quantification where you don't need any reference molecule, right? So that is the importance of absolute digital PCR. So in digital PCR itself, there are three types. One is a droplet-based PCR. Another one is a chamber-based PCR. And both this type can be hybrid to form a droplet in chambers. So this is another types is emerging right now. So this droplet PCR based PCR is established by several companies. The one among them is Bio-Rad. They are the pioneer about, and all my presentation and I mean all the data slides I have taken from the Bio-Rad website. I need to acknowledge them actually. And the next one is a chamber based. This is another big giant from the Perkin-Elmer Thermo Fishers. So they have established a chamber-based PCR. But today I'm just going to concentrate only on the droplet-based PCR. So the digital droplet PCR is nothing but you're going to partition the reaction. For example, this is a conventional PCR and it has a 20 microliter of reaction mixture along with the DNA sample. What I'm going to do is that I'm just going to make a droplets. How many droplets? The 20 microliter, I'm going to make more than 20,000 droplets. So the probability of having a DNA sample is very less, right? So this is not a real-time detection method, and this is an endpoint detection method actually. So the binary signal is 0, 1. That is, if it is present, it is 0. If it is absent, it is 1. So that's why we call it as a digital PCR. So if you take the droplet will be a uniform, and it is an have an independent reaction in each droplet. The endpoint assay, I told you that if the sample has an amplification, then it is called as a positive droplet. If the sample doesn't have the target, then it is called as a negative droplet. So the detection, if the target is present, then it is called as a positive, and if the target is absent, then it is called as a negative. So this is a traditional PCR mix. So what we are going to do is that we are going to make a droplet like this. And this is a Bio-Rad instrument. You will be having a droplet generator. I told you, right? So we need to develop, generate a droplet. So we need an equipment for that, a device for that. And it is called as a droplet generator. Another one is a droplet reader. So after the amplification process, we need to read each droplet. So there comes a droplet reader. So along with that, you will be getting a reagent. One is a master mix. Another one is a oil, which is going to make our master mix a droplet. Along with, you will be also getting a consumables. So what is the benefit of digital PCR? So these are amplification. These are the information which is really lacking in the real-time PCR. One is absolute quantification. You can't quantify absolutely without any reference or a standard curve in real-time PCR. The precision is somewhat, what do you say, it is a very constant. So whenever you do the experiment, number of repeat also, you'll be getting the same measurement. And the number of replicate also, you'll be getting the same measurement. When you take the reproducibility, if you're doing the same assay in one lab, another lab, or another country across the globe, all you'll be having the same reproducibility. That is very, very important in research as well as in the diagnostic approach. The next one is the sensitivity. So it can able to detect a very low copy number. That is very important. For example, if you are getting a COVID, so in real-time PCR, the person, doctor will advise you to get, to go for screening only after 7 days, so that you can able to pick up the signal. But if the digital PCR exists, then on the first or the second day, you can able to detect whether you are having the viral load or not. The accuracy is now in the process of validation. So the ability to make the correct judgment requires the validation. So now the validation is going on across the globe. Once it comes, the next era will be the digital PCR, not the real-time PCR. So how this digital PCR, droplet PCR works? It works based on the Poisson statistics. I think many people know about those who are reading the research methodology paper. They know about what is the Poisson statistics. The Poisson statistics, which can able to determine the numbers for an independent sampling. So here, if you say based on the formula minus log 1 minus p, where the p is a fraction of positive droplet, and 1 minus phi is a fraction of negative droplet. So if you are taking a sample 1, there is no target at all. So what does it mean? It has 143 droplet and you are getting a 0 positive, so no target. But in the sample 2, you are having a 6 positive out of 143. So the value is around 6.2. That is not a major difference in the Poisson model. But if you are taking a high target molecule in the sample 4, you are getting a 70 positive droplet. And the value which you are getting is around 96. So the target which is present and giving the amplification, we can able to give a very absolute value rather than which is not being identified by real-time PCR. So what is the workflow and how the instrumentation will work? So initially I told you that you need to make a droplet. So droplet means you are going to make a 20 microliter reaction mixture into a 20,000 droplet. So you need a generator, droplet generator is needed for this one. Then you need a normal thermal cycler that once a droplet is made, you need to go for a amplification process. So to perform the PCR, a normal thermal cycler is enough for that. Then after that, you need to go for a optical reader where it is going to count how many samples are positive and how many samples are negative. So this is the instrumentation workflow. So right now, this is an oldest model. Now the Bio-Rad comes with a new model combining both the thermal cycler and optical reader into one instrument. And the cost is around 90 to 1 crore, I think so, 90 lakhs. The best part of it is that the one sample cost is only $3, whereas in older version it costs around 3,000 to 10,000 rupees actually. So how we are going to discriminating the positive signals and negative signals in the output of the digital PCR. After partitioning, you are made a partition and then you are putting into a thermal cycler and the amplification take place. So you are having a red circle and a white circle. So how the value you are going to read actually. If you say after partitioning, you see that the graph plotted against the partition and fluorescence. The white droplet will be in the lower end and the red droplet will be in the upper end. That means the positives will be populated here. So you will have a positive, negative, and a rain. Rain is the in-between values actually. So in that case, what happens? You will have some kind of irregularities. I mean, you don't know, you have a confusion where you need to, which region you need to choose the threshold level. So it is purely depending upon your expertise, because once you started doing that, you know how to fix your threshold level. So after fixing your threshold level, you can able to determine the positive and the negative signals in the given sample. So I previously told you that it is an endpoint assay, that is endpoint reader. After each droplet passing through a single microfluidic lining where you can able to detect the fluorescence. So this method is nothing but you can see this kind of technology you can see in the FACS also, fluorescence cytometer. So this is an output you will be getting in digital PCR, the scatter diagram. So the blue color is called as a positive droplet and the black color is a negative droplet. If you see here, in the tabular column, the accepted droplet is around 14,331, whereas the positive is only around 242 and the negative is around 14,000. So by these values, you can able to calculate the concentration of around 18.7. Okay, so this is how the you can able to quantify absolutely the given target in the sample. So this is the principles of digital PCR. So there is no major difference between a thermal cycler, real-time PCR, and a digital PCR. Coming to the application. So if you see the application, I'm just only concentrating on the healthcare alone. But this application has been digital droplet PCR application has been explored in other field also, like in agriculture, food industries, and several other disciplines. But here I'm just focusing only on the healthcare. That is, the first one is gene expression. That is mRNA or microRNA expression on detection. The next one is DNA rearrangement, insection, and deletion. The third one, by using a digital PCR, you can able to estimate the or determine the enzyme activity. And fourth one is a rare sequence detection. Some mutant is very rare and it is very important to detect at a very early stage. So the rare sequence detection is a technology you can able to explore in digital droplet PCR. Genotyping, copy number variation, multiplexing, and circulating tumor cells is another interesting field, emerging field also. These are the fields right now from 2013 to 2020. They have started explore the digital PCR. So coming to the gene expression, so you can analyze any number of RNA, mRNA level in biological samples. You can see this is an different gene. The Bio-Rad has conducted the expression pattern of a different gene. So if, for example, in a disease, there are nearly 7 gene plays an important role. And if you want to find out what is the differentiation, how that the differential gene is starting expressing into our system, you want to study about it. This digital PCR, droplet digital PCR, really helps in identifying the expression pattern, so that you can come to a clear conclusion about what is happening into the system. Usually performed in duplex with the reference gene, and it also include in the detection of microRNA. So microRNA will not help in the expression of protein, but it helps in it is not going to express the protein, but it is going to help in the expressions in expressing the protein. So it is an important regulator. We need to find out how much amount of microRNA is expressed during this disease condition. So the gene expression analysis is very well explored in digital droplet digital PCR. Next, the popular is SNP detection. So, for example, in a target DNA, you have G and A. So, if you see, actually the A has to be there for normal wild type population. But for some people in another allele, you will be having a G. So in order to determine it, you need to design a probe with the FAB and LX. So with the FAB and LX probe, you can able to detect the 3D visualization of the data obtained from the droplet digital PCR. So here you see that there is no amplification, right? The FAM gives you that it is a mutant probe, whereas the green gives you that it is an wild type, whereas the brown reflect that you're having both wild type and the mutant varieties. That is a heterozygous mutation. Similarly, the copy number analysis also can be made. So there are in a chromosome, there may be a duplication, there may be a deletion, there may be an inversion, or there may be a translocation. So this can be also identified by using the droplet digital PCR. The CNV calculation is very important. How many copy number variations are found in the particular disease condition. This is the formula they use. The target copies per microliter divided by the reference copies, and into 2, you will be getting a copy number of the particular human samples. So there is a Nature articles. The title is Structural Allotypes and Recent Evolution of Human in 17q2131 region. So this region is mainly helps gives significant importance in neurological disease and the female fertility, where what do you say that is there is any change in this chromosomal thing, what happens, you can able to detect easily by using a droplet PCR, whereas in real time or NGS is possible, but it is very expensive in NGS. So they have tested with a huge population. They have tried the patient cohort. So they tried with a huge population and they got a very good information with less expenses. The next one is the enzyme activity. So if you want to measure the enzyme activity such as telomerase or DNA polymerase or ligase activity, it can also be possible in digital droplet PCR. The thing is that you have to collect the cells, lyse it, extract the enzyme, and do the ask that to do the specific function. The important is the telomerase. I mean, the important enzyme is the telomerase activity, ligase activity, and then this is all related to somewhere related to the DNA manipulation. So by using a evergreen, we can able to easily target this kind of enzyme activity. So this enzyme activity also can be measured by using the digital PCR. The next interesting and emerging topic is circulating tumor cells. So you know that whenever the tumor in a specific organs is existing, what happens? The cells will start escaping into the plasma. So to detect and the molecular analysis of circulating tumor cells is potentially significant to characterize the disease stage. At what stage is there? It is an early stage or it is a very late stage, and from there we can able to give a therapeutic option for the cancer patient. So if you take a hematopoietic system from the blood cells, you can able to either it is a tumor or virus or organ graft, you can able to isolate the circulating DNA. So either you can go for a droplet digital PCR or by using a chip digital PCR. From there, you can able to start detecting whether you want to find out the loci defined differences, gene expression, or copy number variation, or allelic imbalance. All those can be done by using a circulating tumor cells. Sorry, by using a digital droplet PCR. So the next one is multiplexing. So multiplexing is also possible in droplet digital PCR. So if you see this thing, you have the amplitude of this what you call the positive in different position. The localization is different. One is 62. The length of the amplicon is 62. Another one is a 99. Another one is 200. So there is a location difference is observed in the graph. So this can be multiplexed. For example, you can study two genes. One is RP30, which has a 62 base pair. Another one is ACTP 137 base pair. So when you are going to do for a multiplexing, what happens? You can able to see that the expression of the genes in a scattered format. So that you can understand very well how the target sequence is present in the given sample. The multiplexing is also possible in the digital PCR. So at last, I just want to say that one paper from emerging microbes and infection, they have been submitted a manuscript for accurate tool for COVID-19 detection in a low viral load specimen. So for viral infection, not only for the COVID-19, all kind of viral infection and bacterial infection can be detected very absolutely by using a digital droplet PCR. So the summary is that the droplet digital PCR is a molecular DNA counter. Just we are going to count whether you have a positive droplet or a negative droplet, so that the obtained counter will have high precision, sensitivity, and the reproducibility. It doesn't depend upon any standard curve for quantification. So new experimental strategies are possible, and we people have to explore the droplet digital PCR. The only thing is that the equipment is very expensive, and once we started afford for it, then the several applications for digital PCR will start emerging. So, is there any questions?
Yes, sir.
I'm ready to answer it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the wonderful presentation, sir. So
Thank you very much, sir.
I'll just read out the questions to you. We have got plenty of questions. Sir, can you please explain about CBNAAT test? Is this also related to PCR?
What's the CTAB?
CBNAAT. I don't know what that.
That is nothing but a nucleic acid amplification test. Actually, it is a kind of real-time PCR. It is a cartridge type. Actually, it is for a specific for example, right now we have a C8 NAT for only for tuberculosis. So that what happened, the reagent, everything what we have filled into that tube, I mean that cartridge, and then we will what we will say, we will fix it only for a particular disease actually.
Okay, sir.
It is a kind of real-time PCR.
Sir, another question is, during this pandemic COVID-19, if swab sample is positive in one lab, there is a negative result in another lab. Why is this contradiction? People are asking.
As I said earlier, that first thing is that the people handling, that person who is a technician, how well he trained, right? This is a major question. For example, I was being trained for real-time PCR for the last 9 years, and I'm not expert in it actually. So I make several mistakes. So pipetting itself is art. Everyone should understand it actually. But I don't understand how the technician or they teach them for 1 or 2 days, and then a person start doing the real-time PCR. It's I don't know.
Okay. Sir, another question is, can alterations in genome be identified by this method, sir?
Definitely, that's how I told you, right? If there is any duplication or deletion or insertion, can be the CNV can be calculated easily. This system can readily pick up.
And another person has asked whether this will be a replacement of real-time PCR.
Sure, damn sure. This is going to be a replacement for real-time PCR, and there is another one is going to come, is called as a black box. They didn't name it actually. This is completely a microfluidic device. The device will be only the form type, so you don't need a. The amount of sample is like you are going to giving the sample in the diabetes that chip, right? Similarly, you have to give your sample, so that what happens, the sample itself will isolate the DNA, isolate the RNA, convert into cDNA, and the system itself will do. The system is called as a black box, and it is a microfluidic device. And we are going to get that system in our college by most probably for 2 or 3 months. Then because we are tied with one of the big company in the US, so that we are planning to validate that system. in our AVMs, Arubade Vedu Medical College.
Thank you, sir. That was a wonderful session. Many participants have been saying that it is a very informative session, sir. Thank you. Thank you for the wonderful session, sir.
Once again, I'd like to thank the management and the biotechnology department for giving me this opportunity to share my views. And if you want this PPT, because this PPT is mostly I have taken from the BioRad. If you want, you can log into my Blogspot. That
Yes,
is samrav1 at blogspot.com, and you can download it actually. Maybe in the evening, I will upload the PPT.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Very kind of you. So participants, we have come to the end of this 6 days webinar. And from the department, from the School of Bio and Chemical Engineering, we are happy to announce that from Monday, we'll be conducting a faculty development colloquium, wherein we have invited speakers from various universities. Kindly do join us. The link is given, registration link is given below. So at the outset, I would like to thank our patrons, Dr. Maria Zina Johnson, our Chancellor ma'am, Dr. Marie Johnson, the President sir, the advisors, Dr. Sasi Prabha, Vice Chancellor ma'am, and Dr. S.S. Rao, the Registrar. I would also like to thank the convener, Dr. Wilson Aruni, our Pro Vice Chancellor, for making this webinar series a possibility. And a special thanks goes to the organizing secretaries, Dr. Tyagarajan, Dr. Maslamani, and Dr. Prakash for coordinating the event. Thank you one and all for participating in the 6 days webinar series. You'll be getting your certificates once you fill up the feedback form in 3 days, 3 to 4 days. Thank you one and all. Thank you, sir. Once again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.